Hi, here are four things all worship leaders should be paying attention to become a better worship leader. And if you pay attention to all four of these things, I promise you, you'll be a better worship leader. Number one, you should be paying attention to the congregation. Are they sitting? Do they have their arms crossed? Are they singing? Do they have their hands lifted? Do you even know? Are you a worship leader whose eyes are closed 100% of the time so you don't even know what's happening in the room? You should open your eyes sometimes. You should know if and how the room is engaging with you. As the worship leader, you are facilitating a time with the congregation and God. You should know where the room is at. You need the agreements of the room to lead worship well. And depending on the culture of your church or denomination, agreement can look like different things. A few weeks back, we had one of the worship leaders at our church. It was the early morning service on Sunday. People are mostly waking up, not quite as alive as the second service. And we're in the middle of an upbeat song, and we're looking out into the room. And maybe some of you guys can relate to this, but it felt like the room was dead. Our worship leader made a really mature and awesome call. We did the song as is, but rather than starting to do spontaneous stuff or try to get the room to be more engaged with the song, he ended the song and then went into a hymn. And I gotta tell you, when he started singing the hymn, every single hand raised, their eyes closed because we didn't plan for it. There aren't any words. And you can feel the entire room shift and engage with worship. That is an example of paying attention to the congregation and being able to adjust accordingly. Second, the second thing to be paying attention to is your pastor. Is your pastor sitting or standing? Is your pastor singing with his hands lifted or with his arms crossed? Do you know if your pastor likes the songs that you're singing or the sound that's coming forth? Your pastor is the one who's going to be taking the stage after you. It'll be good to learn their body language to know how and if they're engaging with worship. They are your spiritual covering. Trusting your pastor and having your pastor's trust is so important as a worship leader. So make sure at least part of your attention when leading worship is on your pastor. The third thing to be paying attention to is your band. As the worship leader, can you tell whether a guitarist or bassist or piano player is struggling to keep up with you or not? Are they following you? Are you guys on the same page, maybe literally on the same music page? If you're making any adjustments based on what you're observing with the congregation or with your pastor, you need to make sure your band is with you and is able to follow you. One time I had a bass player who got completely lost in the service, and I turned around and I saw, oh, they were lost. And I was looking for two reactions. The first reaction is if they just closed their eyes and just lifted their hands and started to worship. If they had that reaction, I would just continue as is, even if there was no low end there or no one playing the bass. The second reaction, which is the reaction that happened, was they looked visibly frustrated and lost. They gave like this, remark. And I turned and I saw that. This was a newer volunteer. You have to work with what you have. And this is when I was newer at the church. I had a lot of musicians like this. And so what I did is I signaled to the drummer and the rest of the band that we're going to just quiet down, brought the sound to silence, and I slowly just started repeating the chorus until I heard the band and the bass player jump back in and know where we were at before we moved on. The last and most important thing to be paying attention to when you're leading worship is the Holy Spirit. The beautiful thing about paying attention to and leaning into the Holy Spirit is that you never have to take your eyes off the Holy Spirit as you're observing these other things. The question to be asking when you're watching the congregation or your pastor or your band is you should be asking the Holy Spirit, what should I do about this? You're gathering information. Holy Spirit, what should I do? How should I adjust? This worship is for you, not them. This requires discernment and a relationship with the Holy Spirit. If you feel like the Holy Spirit told you to do something that would dishonor your pastor, that is in contradiction with the word and it's probably not from the Holy Spirit. Your goal as a worship leader is to have alignment and agreement with all four of these things. If there is, glory will fall and it will be amazing. Most worship leaders are really good at one or two, but it's rare to see someone do all four well. Even some of our favorite, incredibly anointed heroes. Oftentimes, the responsibility is split between different trusted individuals, especially at larger churches. But if you lead worship for a small church and you're not paying attention to these things, most likely no one is. If I were to order them in a tier list, first would be paying attention to the Holy Spirit. Second is your pastor, your leader. And then third is the congregation. And last is your band. But of course, paying attention to all four of these things is important as a worship leader. If you lose the congregation, worship isn't going anywhere. If you lose your pastor, you'll be hearing about it later that week. If you lose your band, do that enough times and no one's going to want to play with you. And if you lose the Holy Spirit, well, first of all, you can't because He's everywhere. His grace is sufficient with you. But recognize that all this, everything we're doing, is for Him. The best worship leaders have intimacy with the Holy Spirit and recognize His voice. That's all for now. Let me know which of these spoke most to you. Let me know if you have any other questions or topics you want me to address.
Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe.
Say bye-bye.
Bye.